This is Rockleach with SocialFire. Okay, family, the moment we've been waiting for is finally here. Dr. Joel Tudman has finally told the truth, his truth, and he did it on the Breakfast Club. Yes, that Breakfast Club. The same Dr. Tudman who was once paraded around as the next big thing at Faith Center under Bishop Henry Fernandez, and then, out of nowhere, gone. Listen, this was the firing heard around the church world. They fired him. It was no scandal, no sin, just silence after it happened until now. Because in this interview, Tudman didn't hold back. He opened up about what really happened, what it cost him, and how he's rebuilding after everything that fell apart. Trust me, this is one of those moments you don't want to miss. Because when a man of God starts telling the truth about what the church tries to keep quiet, you already know it's going to get real. So buckle up, SocialFire family. This is truth, the truth behind the spill. Dr. Joel Tudman on the Breakfast Club. You don't want to miss this video.
SocialFire, we don't play. Rockleach bringing the heat all day. Faith on fire, no mask, no leash. Fire in his voice, yeah, I rock.
He the voice for the ones that the church forgot. He bring truth to the light, whether liked or not.
All right, now we're gonna go on over to the Breakfast Club. Now I'm gonna tell you all here, I do have the video here, but let me share something with you about the Breakfast Club as it pertains to YouTube. The Breakfast Club won't allow you to use any of their content without issues. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. You know, I had to even look and see if we could even show the photo. Now that's crazy, but I got to look at it like that. And here on SocialFire, we try to make sure that we abide by these standards that are on YouTube. Now, I don't have that where folk can't use the content of SocialFire, but the Breakfast Club is one of those organizations that will, they have guidelines. As a matter of fact, if you try to make any money off of their videos, they're going to, they're going to take your money, and, you know, the money you try to make is going to come to them. You're not getting a dime of it. And so I don't do that with other content creators. People can use my content. If it can make you a few bucks, you know, so be it. But the Breakfast Club is not like that, as several other larger organizations are like that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to come from the summary and let you know what was said. Now, this whole interview right here, you'll see Dr. J. Burnett here and Dr. Joel Tudman, and they're basically discussing male friendships, trust, finding yourself, plus more. Now, inside of this interview, one of the hosts asked him about, to talk about what happened. To talk about what happened at Faith Center. And so they pivot from pastors publicly, pressure to direct questions about Tudman's departure from Faith City. Now, they did call it Faith City as opposed to Faith Center. That's the name of it, but in the actual interview, they said Faith City. And then she noted the public letter announcing he was no longer senior pastor and asked what happened and how he handled it. And here's Tudman explaining plainly what happened. Tudman says plainly, there was a disagreement in mission, nothing illegal, and that's the relationship was severed. Because of that, the relationship was severed. He actually emphasized his affection. I love those people. He said that a few times. I love those people. I love him. When he said him, that was the only time he said anything that would reference Bishop Henry Fernandez. He didn't even call him by name. He said him. Now, the pain, he says, was the public nature of it. The pain. He describes how hard it was to move forward when the internet public have already decided the narrative with no information. He shares the family costs. He talks about that, picking up kids, reassuring them as a father, relocating, carrying the pressure as a husband provider, because he talked about that in detail about moving his family there, and then what he was planning on making work. After he had uprooted them from where they were, he got there and it didn't work. Now he's got to turn around and explain to them why this didn't work. And basically, I've uprooted you. He had to be a father and a husband. Let's just go ahead and call it what it was. And he talked about how that was hard, to do that. Picking up the kids, reassuring them as a father, relocating, carrying the pressure as a husband provider while figuring out the next step. And he talks about his faith posture in this interview. He talks about his faith posture from this perspective here. He affirms trust in God. He said that a few times, and in the skills God gave him, because he has some skills. He was a college strength and conditioning coach as well. And so he talks about those skills God gave him, saying new doors have opened. He won't call it easy, more like uneasy. But he thanks God and believers, all things work together for good. And so, the tone across this whole thing was, basically it wasn't about a scandal. He clarifies the split was directional, not moral. It wasn't the split with Faith Center, Bishop Henry Fernandez and Dr. Joel Tudman was missional. It wasn't a sin thing. There was nothing in this that suggested it was sin. He said that it was a directional issue. And so, public process, and he talked about that, private pain, unequally heavy for pastors, honor towards the church and leadership, no name calling, no shots. This is all the things that you can see from the interview. But let's break that down when it comes to, saying that it was a missional disagreement, that they disagreed on the mission. That could mean a few things. Now, it wasn't sin, it wasn't a crime, but number one thing that it could have been, I've seen this happen where it's vision versus implementation, where both agree on goals, spreading the gospel, but clash on the method. One might focus on community outreach and modern engagement. The other might prefer traditional preaching and strict church order. I've seen this kind of thing. That's what we call a missional disagreement. It's not moral. It's not doctrinal. It's directional. Number two that it could have been, within this, just explaining this missional disagreement, it could have been different core priorities. One leader might emphasize healing and deliverance. Another might prioritize teaching and discipleship. And when those emphases, when those emphases can't coexist in the same house, the mission gets divided. It gets divided. In other words, we're not pulling the same direction. That's basically what's happening. Another one that we can look at that it could have been within this was cultural or strategic conflict. It could have been something to that nature, sometimes. And the reason I'm saying that because the times that I've seen where it was a missional disagreement, it was usually one of these things. Cultural or strategic conflict is one as well. Sometimes it's about how ministry interacts with culture. One believing in using social media, partnerships and conferences. The other sees it as a distraction or even compromise. Last one that I'll go into, it could be leadership style misalignment. Missional disagreements often reveal differences in how leadership leads. One might be a visionary and collaborative. The other might be hierarchical, believe in a hierarchy and top down. And when those two styles collide, things fall apart, y'all. That's what happened, and then, there's so many things that it could have been, but just saying, I'm glad that he finally spoke and said what people were wondering. He talked about what happened. It was a missional disagreement, but you got to respect this right here. Overall, with Dr. Joel Tudman, you got to respect this, is that there are a lot of pastors to know that they're next at a mega church would have just compromised. They wouldn't have stood on business. And when I say stand on business with what you believe, many pastors will compromise just because of the big seat with what they personally believe. Dr. Joel Tudman knew that was going to cost him. And he did not bend, knew he was going to have to explain this to his family, probably going to lose his job, and he stood on what he believed. Now, I got to respect a man that will stand on what he believed in the face of outright trouble and struggle, in the face of it. He didn't know what was beyond him standing on that, but he had to believe that God was going to take care of him, and I just absolutely respect that 100%. But I want to ultimately know what your thoughts are, because there's a lot of things that could have been said. I respect how this went. He said what he said, and he said it on the Breakfast Club, and doesn't even look like that he was there on the Breakfast Club for that. They was actually there. He was there with Dr. J. Burnett to talk about and discuss male friendships, trust, finding yourself, and different things like that. But the question, somebody was going to ask him, what happened at Faith Center, with you and Bishop Henry Fernandez, and he actually still loves Bishop Henry Fernandez, and we're glad to hear that. Now, we put it all out there. This is what happened. This video was today, but you can go and watch the video for yourself. Go watch the video for yourself. It's just, I had to do it like this, and we just read a transcript to you to just kind of let you know what happened. But I want to know, ultimately, what do you think about this? Meet me in the comment section, and let's talk about it. Let's go.
SocialFire, we don't play. Rockleach bringing the heat all day. Faith on fire, no mask, no leash. Fire in his voice, yeah, rock.
He the voice for the ones that the church forgot. He bring truth to the light, whether liked or not.